Yeah, we're going to get Hobe Kyter up here next, and I think John will introduce him.
Let's get rid of the stand.
Well, I didn't want to miss an opportunity to welcome Hobe to the stage here for the 22nd year in a row. You know, when we had the idea 22 years ago to gather together and start to tell these stories, I made a couple phone calls, that's all I did, and then things just took off. And one of the first couple of people I called were Julie Brown, who's standing in the back there, and she was instrumental here from the college, and you can give her a hand, she'd probably like to have it. The first several years she was terrific encouragement, and she'd done some work with steel workers in, I think it was Canton, Ohio, or back in the Midwest there, about the occupational kind of work that they were doing and gather them together. And I called Hobe, and he was at the time, if I'm not mistaken, he was working at the Waco Heritage Museum, perhaps. And he knows more about the Columbia River and the history here than the rest of us combined in this room, I'm sure. Anyway, and he's my favorite banjo player. And I'm just grateful for 22 years of commitment to the Fisher Poets gathering here. And so thanks, Hobe.
Back.
Closer?
Well, not too close. That's fine. Yeah, that's fine. Well, good evening. It has been 22 years, and this is the third time that I've followed Gino Leach at the Fisher Poets Gathering. It used to give me a great deal of pause. Still does. So I've got a song that's about the early days of the non-Indian commercial fishery here on the Columbia River. First cannery started in 1866 up at Eagle Cliff, Washington Territory, and within a few years there were canneries in many places. There were 22 of them along the shoreline here in Astoria alone. So this is a song about those early days. Some of the canneries wanted their fishermen to catch their fish as close to salt water as could be achieved, and they put that on their labels for their canned salmon. Thing is that back in those days, there were no navigation improvements in the Columbia River. It was the Columbia opened out into a wide open maw with shoals on both sides and in the middle, and it could get pretty darn rough out there. It was a dangerous place to be a fisherman. So this is called Fishing the Bar. For the Columbia we sail from afar to seek our fortune, fishing the bar. The boat and net the cannery supplied to float on down and come back with the tide. Not quite so much gain. We landed at Astoria in 1881. Knowing our adventure had only just begun. Our passage was stormy, and yet we did survive. In health and good spirits, grace to arrive. Both in our 20s, Brother Ned and I, we'd master our fate, or know the reason why. In full youth and vigor, with confidence did bring, he counted on me, and I in turn on him. Columbia we sailed from afar to seek our fortune, fishing the bar. The boat and net, the cannery supplied, the float on down and come back with the tide. Ned was the elder, so skipper would be, but for equal shares on that we did agree. For boat and net, another share must pay, and so shaking hands, our lives did essay. The boat was handy and easy to sail, clean of line, not likely to fail, of white oak and cedar, a sturdy little craft, with mast stepped forward and net stowed abaft. For the Columbia we sailed from afar to seek our fortune, fishing the bar. The river was rapid and broad, so we found many's a fisherman tried her and drowned. Point Adams to the south was boggy and low, to northwest the capes, light and cliffs down below. Northern and southern, midstream as well, were breakers and shoals, sand sent straight from hell. If weather be fair, a passage might appear, but should it turn foul, through the breakers must steer. For the Columbia we sailed from afar to seek our fortune, fishing the bar. Was fast in the spring of 1883. A gale blew up as we drifted out to sea. Too late concluding to cut the net and run, we broached to the breakers, nearly undone. Almost foundering, we brought her about. We took quite a pounding, of that there was no doubt. Pulling for our lives, we took her well offshore, till far south on Clatsop, brought her in once more. For the Columbia we sailed from afar to seek our fortune, fishing the bar. Come all young sailors and listen to me, trust not your lives to the bloody cannery. Thank you. This next one is about fishing with horses on the old Columbia River horse seining grounds. And it just, it's a coincidence, but we have a historic film of horse seining that's being shown on the building outside across the street, across Marine Drive. And I haven't seen it myself, but I've seen several other pieces of film that were taken on the horse seining grounds. I heard stories about it when I was growing up. There used to be a barn that was located out on the Desdemona Sands to the west of the Astoria Bridge. And I remember going across the ferry one time and asking about it, and the mate coming up and telling me the story about the seining grounds where at the right stage of tide, you could see horses waiting out in the middle of the river. And it sort of fired my imagination. That spot is still there. Of course, nothing but pilings there, but that's what anchored the floating barn as it rode up and down on the tide. And hull seining or beach seining is known in many places around the world, but this is the only place where the maritime technology of hull seining has been combined with the agrarian technology of using draft horses to pull in the nets. And that was because during the big days of the canneries and the industrial fishery here on the Columbia River, the nets got so big the men couldn't haul in the nets. And I think it probably was somewhere down on Sand Island in the 1890s that the men couldn't haul in the load because there were too many tons of fish in the catch. And then within sight, on the other side of the island on Stringtown Road near Owaka, Washington, there was a farmer working with his draft horses, and the idea bloomed. And within a year, every one of the hull seine sites on the Columbia had been converted to horse seining. So that's the background for this. And this is called Nugget Hauled the Seine. I'll never forget those Jim Crow sands where my thoughts will long remain. With a team of horses there, a gelding and a mare, hauling on the Seine. Belle, she was a gentle one, and she knew just what to do. While Nugget was her son, the big and brawny one, with a heart both brave and true. We worked upon those Jim Crow sands, hauling salmon by the ton, while Belle was sure and quick when the run was coming thick. Old Nugget was the one. And though I've grown old and gray, no, I'll never forget that day. No, I never can forget those bones were cold and wet, how Nugget hauled the Seine. 'Twas all upon an August day, it was 1941, with a big run coming in. Yes, the catch was big as sin, and the tide was not quite done. Still the tide was rolling in, still the run was coming in, till we set the net again. But the sand was getting quick, Nugget's hooves began to stick, and the tide kept rolling in. And though I grown old and gray, no, I'll never forget that day. No, I never can forget those bones were cold and wet, how Nugget hauled the Seine. The harness on the Seine grounds was the belly band and Hames. From the collar traced the lines through the double tree entwined, and the skinner held the reins. We often worked an unmatched pair, not by chance, but by design. While the smaller took the lead, we counted on the bigger breed to haul the weight on the line. Belle, she was the lead horse there, and we knew just what to do. While Nugget hauled the weight. He was muscular and great, with a heart both brave and true. And though I grown old and gray, no, I'll never forget that day. No, I never can forget, though his bones were cold and wet, how Nugget all the same. Still the tide was rolling in a predicament most dire. Nugget always hauled the load, but the harder that he pulled, he sank deeper in the mire. Bill was closer to the shore from the traces cut her free. And then my biggest fear, Nugget was too big to steer, and it was up to me. And though I've grown old and gray, no, I'll never forget that day. No, I never can forget, though his bones were cold and wet, how Nugget all the same. I did old Nugget slack, the line was really not his way. Then my waders overbrimmed, it was really looking grim as the current swept me away. I grabbed a hold upon the line as the current dragged me down. Then Nugget felt me pull, I was as low to haul, he wouldn't let me drown. All upon the mighty heave, he brought me up again. But with it he sank down, he was about to drown. I was with him at the end. And though I've grown old and gray, no, I'll never forget that day. No, I never can forget, though his bones were cold and wet, how Nugget all the same. Thank you very much.